It's been a crisis in Hennepin County for years, a shortage of foster care parents. Reporter Pafua Yang takes us inside a Brooklyn Park foster home and explains why there's a need.
We know that we can't adopt them all, but we've got 5 of them.
For 34 years, Darlene and Curtis Bell have lived out their calling.
We were told about 30 years ago that we'd live on a farm in a big house full of kids. Before any of this was built, we didn't know that, but then it came to fruition, and this is where we are.
The high school sweethearts grew up around the foster care system.
I have lived experience as being a foster child when I was in Chicago and experienced trauma and had to be put into foster care.
Our number one goal is reunification with the birth parents. My parents were taken in, my cousins and community members, way back before it was ever foster care.
Many foster children come from abuse or neglect. The hardest groups to place in foster homes are teens and siblings. But thanks to organizations like MinAdopt, kids are connected to parents like Darlene and Curtis.
We don't need perfect families. We need families that can provide a safe and stable place.
Kim Young with MinAdopt says in 2019, on any given day, there were an average of 9,300 kids in foster care across the state. 1,300 of those kids are from Hennepin County. More than 700 of those youths need adoptive families.
Some of the basic requirements are that foster parents are 21 years or older, and that they can pass the Adam Walsh criminal background check.
Young says the need in foster home is important to the community so kids can cope, heal, and grow into a strong adult.
A foster child could come in for just a couple of days, and it could be many months and sometimes a year or two.
And whether it's a couple days or a couple years, foster parents say the reward outweighs the challenges.
They know that we'll always be their grandma and papa, even after they're far and gone and grown.
Right.
We're still here for them.
In Brooklyn Park, Pafua Yang, CCX News.
The beautiful weather this weekend might have you thinking about getting outside, but golf course managers have actually been thinking about this weekend for quite some time. The Minnesota Golf Association reported rounds up almost 30% last year, and many courses are selling out rounds for this year. Centerbrook Golf Course in Brooklyn Center opened about a week ago. They have all the regular COVID precautions in place, like social distancing and wearing a mask in the clubhouse. They say the early start will be a busy one. The Twin Cities are a hot spot for stand-up comedy. Minnesotans can catch famous comedians or catch local comics trying to break into the industry at a number of local clubs. But it didn't always used to be this way. As Delane Cleveland reports, there's a new book out that details the rise of Minnesota's comedy scene and a longtime Maple Grove resident who is at the center of it all.
Please put your hands together. The very talented Mr. Phil Kohler.
In the Twin Cities metro area, people can find live stand-up comedy nearly every single night.
I think places like the New Hope Cinema Grill and stages like this are really important to comics. When comics come to town, even now, they know that they're coming to perform in front of a crowd that understands comedy, that appreciates it.
And some of those comedians likely honed their skills at the New Hope Cinema Grill.
It's actually been a pretty under the radar but big, important piece of Twin Cities comedy. It's something that I think it strengthens the scene as a whole.
Patrick Strait is an expert in these matters. He's the author of a new book called Funny Thing About Minnesota.
So this is the cover. This is kind of I call it the original 5. So, Louis Anderson, Jeff Gerbino, Scott Hansen, Alex Cole, and Bill Bauer.
The book explores the history of stand-up comedy in the Twin Cities.
I've heard this kind of lore, this kind of legend. Minnesota stand-up comedy is so incredible. If you're going to talk about stand-up comedy, you got to talk about Minnesota because it's made such a huge impact. But I never really knew why.
He spent the better part of 2 years finding out the answer by talking to people responsible for the birth of Minnesota's comedy scene.
Patrick gave me a call and he said, I've been working on this book and your name keeps popping up.
One of those people was longtime Maple Grove resident Scott Hansen.
It didn't just happen one day that there were comedy clubs. There were a bunch of people, a small handful of people rather, that took that and decided to make it their life's work.
Do we have any Lutherans here? Oh,
Well, I'll miss you guys in heaven.
Hansen is one of the original comics who helped establish stand-up comedy in Minnesota.
We really just wanted to tell jokes.
He eventually evolved into a businessman who ran comedy clubs here and helped develop talent.
And I don't think you could have the quality we had without people battling it.
It's a business that's still alive and well today at venues like the Cinema Grill.
They get it, they appreciate it, they're super supportive of comedy, and it's really important, I think, not just for comics, but like I said, for the audiences as well.
In New Hope, Delane Cleveland, CCX News.
A Brooklyn Park Elementary School principal is a finalist for a prestigious award. Amy Oliver is in her 8th year as principal at Monroe Elementary. This is video of an endeavor back in 2019 for students at the school to attempt to break a world record by making a human image of a gear. Oliver's co-workers nominated her for the award of Minnesota National Distinguished Principal for her efforts to promote equity in her school and her leadership. Oliver will find out in May if she won. And finally, a Wayzata High School student is drawing attention to the dangers of vaping.
I don't think my video is going to stop anyone from vaping, but I think it'll bring up an issue and help facilitate more discussion about the topic. And then that hopefully leads to people stopping vaping.
Ashley Zoe won the Escape the Vape contest for her video called Vaping is Not Sweet. One statistic shows e-cigarette use among 8th graders nearly doubled from 2016 to 2019, and organizers felt this contest was important because it gave youth the chance to empower other youth.
The whole premise there is, once again, that they're going to trust their friends more than they trust us. And they're more likely to embrace the words and wisdom of their peers. And that message simply goes so much further.
That day, Nick left with something, but it wasn't a vape. It was a lesson that vaping isn't as sweet as it sounds.